The rest of their EcoChurch had already been applied, so it wasn't a problem. But they hadn't even thought about it. Woolfields are urban reserve. One of the things we've done with that is to create little pockets of, if you like, demonstration sites, so that churches can go down and have a look at possibilities, what they might do with their own piece of land. We're not trying to get to dictate, but we're seeking to promote ideas, promote thinking, promote possibilities. Other churches, this one in Suffolk, and what they've created is a wildlife meadow. And people can come there, sit and enjoy the wildlife or the wildflowers and the wildlife that benefits from it. Another group that also benefit is the pub on the opposite side of the road. We're invited to come over and sit here and enjoy the environment of it. And once they come over and start enjoying that environment, then you have a chance to connect, to talk with them, to engage. Some churches don't have any land at all. This one in South London, they've got no land, but that hasn't stopped them engaging with the local wildlife trust. And they have a day out planting trees, engaging, walking with nature. Because if there's one thing that the pandemic taught us, is our connection to nature. Woolfields, created from a rubbish dump in an urban jungle, now a small green space where the local doctors prescribe people with mental health difficulties to come walking. Because that has been shown, it's been proven to be beneficial, to help people. How many people during the pandemic valued that walk outside? And in London, maybe hearing birds for the first time above the sound of traffic, which has stopped. And then we look at engaging with communities. Churches, we are placed in community to be part of community. We have the doors open, welcoming people to come in, but also, I'd argue, to go out there to engage with the community within which you are placed, to care for the green spaces that you have. And in central London, you've got some lovely green spaces. To engage with it, to engage with the community looking after it, and with the bodies who have responsibility for it. But we also look at the global community. How do we engage with the global community? Much of our mission work is to support missions abroad, Tier Fund, Christian Aid. There's also toilet twinning here. Almost every live, I think, in there has the toilet twinning certificate.
Plus sinks.
Don't be I'm not going into detail. But this church in Rugby took it one further and engaged the council to toilet twin all their council toilets. And actually they do a collection. They invite subscription to support toilet twinning within the public loos. Lifestyle. It's no good having the other four, or the other four categories, unless the community that is actually the core of the church isn't also engaged. So actually, the first or the last category, the lifestyle of the church, is actually about individuals themselves looking at their own credentials. We've got a problem at the moment. We've just had COP26, There's a recognition that something like 10% of the world uses 50% of the resources, while 50% of the world uses 10% of the resources. There's a disconnect. The developed world is using a huge amount of resources. We can talk as much as we like about it, but to respond to it, we've got to use less resources. Where on earth do we start? In community, together, we can talk about it, we can respond to it, we can do something. Reduce what you can, offset the rest. Climate stewardship is one of our other initiatives. And in offsetting, what we can do with that one is we have projects in Uganda, Nepal, and Ghana. Might have said Uganda again, I'm not sure, but there we go. But we have a big project in Ghana as well. Helping those communities to survive on more. Solar panels, ovens, water filters, and so on. And in doing that, they use less of their environment. They trash less of their environment, which perversely is what they rely on for their own good. Big area, finance. When you look at your savings, what are you supporting? How many of your finances are supporting fossil fuel industries? Simple things like that. Actually, who are we investing with? Or do we say, well, I'll just leave it to the bank? Do we have a responsibility to react to it? And this is the survey. As you can see, it is a series of buttons. You can ask the question, do you have special needs relating to relating to caring for God's earth, e.g. creation time, etc., at least annually and so on. As you click the answer, so the manometers on the top right-hand corner respond, and you start to see how you are performing in that area. And these not only respond, they also change colour, so that you go from bronze to silver to gold. A bit like bingo. So you can see when you get into a bronze standard. To get a bronze award, you've got to have got 5 bronze responses, unless you have said you've got no land, in which case you can have 4. If you have 3 bronzes, 2 silvers, still a bronze award. You can't operate just in 2 areas and explain the rest. You've got to be realistic. But the great thing is, there's a wealth of resources on the website. They've just been relaunched, a huge task, and they're actually designed not just to help the church itself, but as an individual, if you want to go along and look at a particular issue. Start here, because you will find information, all the rest of it, to help you. Those resources are there, they're there to help you. Do make the most of them. The award itself. The award, once you get a bronze award, you go to the minister, and the minister says, yes, we have covered every category. This is a true reflection of what has been done. Signs it off and submits it. And then we will issue a certificate. But you can go one stage further. You can actually purchase a wooden plaque. I spent 30 years as a police officer. But my first 3 years were in Felixstowe. And one night, I'm sitting on the seafront, It's a warm summer's evening, so I'm sitting there with the window open, waves lapping in the background, nobody around, and I'm just writing a report. All of a sudden, the hat on my head started going up and coming down, going up, coming down. And I'm looking. I freeze, check that mirror, can't see anything. Check that mirror, still can't see anything. My hat is still going up and down. It's got to be one of my mates who's crept up. I can't see anything. It's the first time, and only time in 30 years, that I felt like a hedgehog. Because all my hairs have gone like this, they're stacking up. In the end, I go and look. It's a cat. A cat has climbed onto the roof. It's holding on with 3 paws, and the 4th paw is... I love animals, but I could have killed that cat. All it wanted was a bit of attention. God's world isn't just calling for attention, it's screaming for attention. We have to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. I really want to know about, in the space, which faith institutions are here. So if you are from a faith institution and you'd like just to say who you're from, please stand up and say, yes, I'm from la 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 la, and we'll welcome you into the room.
John Davis, from Melton Field. I used to be a volunteer at Friends of the Earth when Andy Atkins was CEO.
Thank you.
St. James's Piccadilly. And I live in Southall.
St. James, is there anyone from Westminster Quakers?
I think one of the obvious things with churches is the buildings. How do they justify having these monstrosities?
I don't disagree, but on the other hand, they're a superb witness to faith, to the faith of our ancestors, all the rest of it. They are beautiful buildings. If we don't use them, what are we going to do with them? And I don't disagree with change of use, all the rest of it. But on the other hand, these fantastic buildings were built to worship God, and as such, they are a particular or fantastic focus. So rather than discount the work of our ancestors, let's see if we can continue to use, maybe as a community focus. You look at St James's, which has a superb community work within the building, using the rooms, all the rest of it. So it becomes more than just a church, but actually a community resource. So yes, I don't disagree that many churches exceed their briefs, but let's not discount them. Let's actually open them up, make better use of them.
I love the Togstead gazebos.
Yes.
It's beautiful, right? What
Yes.
a great thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was brought up in the Suffolk village. We had one church, we had the old church.
And we have a beautiful building, and we think the rough sleepers who live in our church, they deserve to wake up in a beautiful setting. The people who come in off the street, we want them to enjoy a beautiful setting. But we want it to be used in a way that addresses issues that we are very concerned about, whether it's homelessness or refugee resettlement. And we're trying to also do the refurbishment along EcoChurch lines. So we do, that's how we are approaching it, because we feel that beauty is something that we want to cherish and to uplift.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. St James's has one proper use of the building, but others don't. A lot of others don't.
I don't disagree. What I would say is the first time I went to a meeting at St James's, the rough sleepers on the back benches who came in, that's not so nice, but wonderful. Sorry.
Shall we get into some groups and just introduce ourselves and just have a little group discussion around it? There you go.
Recently rearranged variation.
Very interesting.
I don't want to give up anything from this.
Yes, and I feel it's
Lots of great discussions. I mean, maybe we can continue those like after the courts are closed and just chat. That'd be amazing.
Let's work collaboratively in the interests of justice in our city. And it's churches, mosques, synagogues, schools, universities, community groups, all working together on issues of justice that matter to us. The Just Transition campaign is a London citizens campaign that I co-chair, and this was the result of a conversation where some of us said about 2 years ago, why are citizens not doing anything around climate change? And we thought, well, we don't know, so let's do it. So we developed this campaign that you were just talking about, where in the run-up to the mayoral election, we challenged the mayor to create 60,000 good green jobs and to upgrade 100,000 homes with lead insulation, prioritising the homes that are lived in by people who are living in fuel poverty. So it was about doing the right thing environmentally, but using it as a way of bringing about justice for people here and now, hence the phrase just transition. It's going great. Off the back of that, we were having a conversation, as you do after hours one day, and we said, what would it be like if every church in the West End was, carbon neutral by 2030? How do we get there? And that conversation led to, well, that's quite a big goal. Why don't we set some interim goals and think, well, we'll use EcoChurch, because EcoChurch don't necessarily have the certification to get us there, but they're going to get us several steps along the way and do lots of other great stuff as well. And so this conversation with EcoChurch is part of perhaps a bigger vision that we've got at the back of our mind. What would it be like if all of the churches in Westminster and the West End were carbon neutral by 2030? So let's start with this. So I think if we can now find ways of getting the energy that's in this room, working together with churches together in Westminster to challenge other churches to join us, we can really make a difference. And this is the citizens' methodology in a nutshell.